Hello everyone, good evening. There is something I need to get off my chest. It's about a question that has been keeping me awake every night. A question whose answer I cannot find, despite scouring the deeper depths of the internet. Why does Belgium exist? Is it a real place, or is it just a fallacy? Because all arrows point to the same direction, that it's not real, although it is, at the same time. Does that make any sense?
No.
Exactly. To even begin comprehending this place, we need to go back to its origin. After the conclusion of the Napoleonic Wars, the big powers of the time during the Congress of Vienna decided that land should be shuffled around a bit so that they could balance each other out and no one could be too powerful, I guess. Essentially an NBA draft happened for land. And the area that we now know as Belgium ended up in the Kingdom of the Netherlands. But not for long. Say hello to King William I of the Netherlands. He was a bit of a goofball. My man wanted his entire country to speak Dutch and be Protestant. Which sounds reasonable until you realize that in southern Netherlands, aka Belgium, there were a lot of Frenchies who didn't want to speak Dutch because they were French.
French!
And a lot of Catholics who didn't want to be Protestant because they were Catholic. Also, this place was really poor. As a result, people in this area revolted against the king in 1830, resulting in the creation of Belgium. Now, not everyone was on board with this situation, especially France, who was like, why does this place exist? Shouldn't we split it among ourselves? But then the UK was like, no, we should respect Belgium's territorial integrity. From now on, Belgium is a demilitarized border zone/roadblock between France and Germany. And that's exactly what happened, as in 1839 Belgium's independence was officially recognized. Its territorial integrity and role as a buffer state between France and Germany was well respected, except for the few times that it wasn't. This place isn't called Europe's battlefield for nothing. Essentially, it exists for two reasons. The first is that the big European powers of the past needed a buffer state between them to discourage war, which it didn't. The second reason is that the citizens of said buffer state, despite being split between French speakers in the south and Dutch speakers in the north, they would rather eat the rotten asshole of a rot-kid skunk and down it with beer instead of joining either France or the Netherlands. That, my friends, is why Europe ended up with a country made up of two countries, where the north speaks Flemish, a dialect of Dutch, is rich, eats waffles, and does not wash their hands after using the restroom, while the south speaks French, is poor, eats potatoes, and is the cultural center of Belgium. These regions are Flanders and Wallonia, who along with the region of Brussels make up the country. But actually they don't make up the country, because Belgium is also split into communities. The Flemish-speaking community, the French-speaking community, the bilingual-speaking community in Brussels, that actually mostly speaks French despite being surrounded by Flanders. And lastly, the little German-speaking community in Eastern Wallonia. Now, why all these confusing divisions? Like looking at a map of the regions and the communities, with the exception of the little German-speaking community, these two types of divisions are intertwined. Buckle up, students, because things are going to get very confusing. You see, Belgium has 6 governments. Yes, 6! Belgium is what's called a 3-tiered federation, which includes federal, regional, and community governments. How does that work? As you can see here, in Brussels we find the federal government, the government for Belgium as a whole, but also the government of the Brussels capital region, the government for Brussels only. In the north, there's the Flemish government, who's in charge of both the Flemish region and the Flemish community, while in the south we have the government of the French community and the government of the German-speaking community. And then there's the Walloon government, who is in charge of Wallonia as a whole. All of these governments are considered equal, have their own roles and area of expertise, perfectly balanced as all things should be. Flanders get a small piece of Wallonia, Wallonia get a small piece of Flanders. That is what Belgium is all about, balance. And nowhere is this balance more apparent than in the federal government, aka the Belgian government, who is responsible for Belgian government stuffs. It's got a parliament made up of 2 parliaments, very fitting. One is the Senate, It's got 60 members elected by the other 5 governments. And the Chamber of Representatives, whose 150 members are chosen by the people. 16 seats for Brussels, 47 for Wallonia, and 87 for Flanders.
Hey, that doesn't sound very fair.
Well, you see, my boy, there are more Flemings in this world than Wallonis, so it is fair and balanced, okay? You wanna know something hilarious? The Belgian parties run exclusively in one region or the other. So if you live in Wallonia, you cannot vote for a Flemish party, and vice versa. The only party that runs in the ballots of both sides are the communists. This silly division does not include Brussels, because in Brussels people can vote for any party they want. Now this leads to something even more hilarious. Nobody can form a majority, because nobody has more than 50% of the seats. Which means that to actually form a government, you need to create a coalition. Something that is quite difficult because, you see, most parties have different opinions. So that's why reaching a consensus on anything in Belgium is a fucking nightmare. Such a nightmare in fact that Belgium didn't even have a government for like 2 years. And everything ran smoothly. I mean, Belgium still is one of the richest countries in Europe. When I called Wallonia poor previously, I meant Western Europe poor, not Bulgaria poor. Since we are on this topic, here's some interesting Belgian government lore. The Prime Minister is appointed by the King, because Belgium is also a kingdom. The first king was Leopold I, not to be confused with Leopold II, who killed millions of people in the Congo. Also, the royal family was originally German, so you know who to blame. This is the former Minister of Health, Miss Maggie de Block, a reference to the fact that she looks like a Roblox character. In the parliament, both Dutch and French are spoken, so you kinda need to speak both to understand what's going on. This is quite an issue in Belgian society, because people from either side need to learn each other's language to communicate, which is easier said than done, so English is often used instead. Imagine speaking English to your own countrymen. Bipolar disorder our country. It's actually really fitting how the de facto capital of the European Union is Brussels. I mean, what better place can you think of for a convoluted mess that cannot even decide what it is? That's right, Luxembourg, another nonsensical country that uses a sun-dried Dutch flag and speaks French. That's the other capital of the EU. And you wanna know something else? No! It's right next to the Belgian province of Luxembourg. That is bigger than Luxembourg proper. Yeah, the schizophrenia goes even outside the Belgian borders. Have you seen this place? What, you think you guys are slick, eh? Running borders through houses. Wait till customs are added here. You'll have to go through a border check just to take a shit. You know, it does sound like I'm a hater, which I am, although not nearly as much as actual Belgians. Can't blame them. Seriously, the only time when Belgians actually feel Belgian is when the national team plays. Unfortunately for them, these guys are absolute frauds. I actually have some nice things to say about literally Drake and Josh the country. They do make some good consumables. It's home to some really beautiful cities like Ghent, truly breathtaking architecture. Charleroi also looks quite nice, if you are into carpet-bound Eastern European cities.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Belgium also knows how to entertain. Tintin is a Belgian comic, In Bruges was filmed in Bruges, and the Smurfs are Belgian. Everyone loves the Smurfs. Last time I checked, Papa Smurf was working in the port of Antwerp. Something about shipping white sugar with some Moroccans. What else? Seagull competition. Yeah. So what does the future hold for Belgium? What do you guys think? Will it get partitioned like a good old pie? Will it fully embrace its split personality disorder and become two countries? Or continue casting confusion by simply continuing to exist? Comment down below because I really value your opinion or something.